Welcome to the Pintastic Podcast, a podcast about growing profitability the right way with sustainable systems so you can be found first without tantrums over tech and trading sleep for success. Prepare yourself for mind-blowing discussions and actionable tips focused on Pinterest strategies, funnel marketing, and everything in between with your host, Laura Reich. So let's make Pinterest profitable for you.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Pintastic Podcast. I am Laura Reich, your go-to marketing Pinterest strategist, and today we're diving deep into a topic that most content creators tend to overthink, overdesign, or plain just overlook. So we're going to talk about Pinterest design mistakes because, yes, we talk about this all the time. Pinterest is a search engine, but your visual game matters more than ever in today's algorithm. Right now, I'm seeing way too many business owners pour their time into creating pins that just aren't serving them. They're not bringing in the leads and sales that they want, desire, and put the time and effort into. So, we're going to walk you through what Pinterest actually wants to see, what your audience is craving, and some of the most common design mistakes I see over and over again, and how to fix them using a simple design system. Here to let me pick apart her Pinterest account and use a real life walkthrough of someone who's doing so many things right in her business, but just needs a couple of tweaks on her Pinterest account to go from meh to oh my gosh, is Teagan.
Yes. Hi.
Yeah, welcome. Excited to be able to help you. I know we talked a little bit, but your business is all about helping moms build six-figure and beyond virtual assistance businesses.
Yes.
Love that. I don't know if you know, but I actually was a virtual assistant for a few years. So yeah, I resonate with that very heavily. I went to school for graphic design. Then before virtual assistant was a term, couple of virtual assistant jobs focused on Pinterest only. So I'm super excited to have going over all these things.
I love that. Like, I feel like we all specialize. We probably all kind of started there. I'm right there with you. I started in 2015 before virtual assistant was even like a job title. Like, it just was like a freelancer or some sort, and it's kind of worked. So,
Awesome. So let's hop into your Pinterest account. I know you told me, but tell everybody else. When was the last time you focused on Pinterest, my dear?
I have not touched my Pinterest account since probably the early part of 2018. So, the better part of what, 7 years ago?
I love it. Okay. So what I can see right here, right now, is your Pinterest account is connected to Instagram, correct?
It appears it is, I guess. Yes.
Perfect. So one thing that I will say is I will ask you to actually go and disconnect that because you can keep it connected without auto posting. So you're going to go into settings. You're going to go into your account management and claim external accounts here on the left-hand side. And when you do that, if you're already connected, you will see connected here to Instagram. You want to leave it cleaned, but you want to actually disable the auto publishing. And so you can just toggle that off
Okay.
so that it does not publish always to your profile.
Okay.
The reason being is because your content on Instagram may be helpful in the way of your Pinterest users, but it's not going to be helpful in terms of the way it's designed to show up on the platform. So they're square, they don't have the right visual search intent on them, things like that. And there's a lot of text, like when we look at some of them. That really does well on social media, but Pinterest not being social media, we're going for the quick information to use it more as a redirection and a search and find. So to leave it claimed, you'll be able to then still see traffic. So if you were to recreate one of these images to lead to an Instagram post that actually is bringing in leads and sales, you'll be able to track that on the back end of your Pinterest account.
Okay.
So you'll still be able to have the insights knowing what's working and what's not, but you won't be just auto posting. You'll be able to create specific pins that are going to work for this platform.
Okay. That makes sense.
Yeah, so that's just the first thing. The second thing that I want to quick just talk about before we get into the nitty-gritty of designs is your website is claimed right here. But I also know that this spot, people typically do not grab this link and it's not clickable. So you want to use this more for the keyword focus of what you're helping people for. So I know you have virtual assistant in here. I know you have mompreneur in here, virtual assistant businesses. So you want to make sure that you are telling them within that quick sentence or two why they care about your profile while using 3 to 4 keywords that are going to be specific about you and your website. So you can even talk about that you were a virtual assistant, in the background. You can talk about how you invested tons of money into your education. You can talk about like whatever you want to get them to feel that connection and then also trickle in those keywords. The easiest way to find keywords, and actually the way that I tell people my unbiased opinion of should you be on the platform, is literally go to Pinterest and in the top search bar, start typing things. So you can see before our call here, I already had started typing in like virtual assistant guide because that's what you have on there. You can just start typing in virtual assistant and see what pulls up underneath that for Pinterest. So there's services, there's business, content ideas, tools, like all these things you can talk about. So even virtual assistant business, you can see it's talking about no experience, how to become in demand, how to make $100,000, like be a fully booked out. And that's exactly what you're helping people coach on. Those are the terms that I would start using in your name, your profile, your pins, all those kind of things.
Okay.
Awesome. Yeah. All right. So that's kind of like the nitty gritty of your profile design. There's more nuances and things like that to it, but really focusing on telling Pinterest, the computer and the algorithm, what those keywords are so that then the users can relate to the pins that you're going to be doing.
Okay.
Now, I chose a couple things to focus on and do some pin designs for you. What would be like one of your main goals from Pinterest when you start using it again?
Which is hopefully soon. Ultimately, like what I want to create with Pinterest is drive traffic and then ultimately get sales with like low ticket digital products just to help people get into my sphere. Cause I'm like, even if it's a low ticket, like I know that I can make an impact and I know that they're identifying as somebody that's like serious about it as opposed to somebody that's just downloading a freebie. So
Yeah, perfect. So, a couple different things for you. How to look at your website. And so, what I want to talk about, I teach everybody in terms of Pinterest the computer and then Pinterest the user. And so, we're going to do that for your designs and some of your offers today, too. First, let's talk about what Pinterest wants from the computer standpoint for your pins and what you're putting out there for your offer. And so one of the things I want you to think about is the platform is constantly always looking for original, fresh ideas, not just repinning things, positive, uplifting type content, relevant content that's going to be relevant to your user, right? Or your niche. So that's where the keywords come into play. And then the visuals, things that are going to make them stop scrolling, things that are going to make them take action. Pinterest at its core, when it was even back in the invite only days, back in like 2009, it was a redirection site. It still is today. Pinterest loves when people tell the users what to do. So you're telling them to click, if you're telling them to read, to listen, every time you do something like that and you give them that action, they love that, right? As Pinterest the computer. So every time you create a pin, you're going to want to ask, is this something that's visually appealing? Does it lead to somewhere valuable? Is it something that is worth repinning from your user standpoint? If
Okay.
not, it might be time to tweak that. Okay.
Okay.
So let's flip to the user. So for your audience and audiences as a whole, the user uses Pinterest differently than marketers, right? So gonna take a step out, not think like a marketer. You're gonna try to put yourself in their shoes. It's a discovery platform. They're using it with the visual aspect to capture their attention, but really at its core, it's just like them going to Google. They're searching for a solution, whether that solution is starting their VA business, whether that solution is growing their VA business, hiring you, getting on your lead magnet, purchasing the small lead ticket, or downloading a freebie. That's where they're like, okay, what's next? They're not brand specific, so they don't care if it's big name person that's been out online forever, the little business just starting up, medium-sized business, Target, Lulu, like that's not their concern. So the biggest thing that you want to make sure is that you want things that are aesthetically appealing.
Okay.
It doesn't mean that as a service-based business, you have to have like product-esque type pin designs. It just means it has to look appealing to them where they can read it and have a clear understanding of what they're going to get if they actually click through.
Okay.
You also want to play on that emotional relevancy or emotional type connection with them so that they can feel like they're going to get something from this, right? So it's like that give and take. And then a solution, whether that solution is to purchase from you, to learn from you, to download something from you, they are there with the intent to solve a problem. And problem, let's use that loosely, right? If you're buying something, it might not be a problem, but for the best term possible, like they're looking to get to that next step. So we want to focus on that when we're thinking about like how we're going to talk to them in this pin design.
Okay.
The last thing is when you put those together, right? Visuals that make it scroll stopping and actual content for the computer and the solution and the emotion and the aesthetics for the user, you
Yep.
want to make sure that you have the keywords because both the computer and the user are going to look for keywords.
Okay.
The computer is going to serve the keyword, the user is going to search the keyword. So, one of the things that we want to focus on is consistent fonts, colors, and photos. And I really, really love, and I know I said this in the beginning, your brand colors and everything on your website. I think it's very poppy. It draws attention. It shows your personality. And so making sure that that comes through on the designs that you're doing as well is going to be very helpful for you. One of the things that I will suggest is when we talk about branding, a lot of people think that branding is colors and fonts only. It can be so much more than that. It can be the emotional connection, the fun connection, the things like that. It doesn't have to be your logo. It doesn't have to be your website link. And it doesn't necessarily have to be these exact fonts that you use on your website. It can be a combination of other fonts.
Okay.
And I say that to challenge the fact that I love these fonts. Pinterest visual search might have a hard time with that scripty font.
Yeah.
You just want to be very careful with that. But the other two fonts can be used interchangeably. And again, fonts aren't your brand. Brand designers don't come for me when I say that. But like that doesn't make up your brand. You are your brand. Have elements of that and you involved, you'll be perfect on the platform.
Okay.
So when we do this, making sure that you have the consistent fonts, colors, and photos. Have a repertoire of different photos for visual elements that you can use. Make sure that you stick to 1 to 2 font combinations across every pin design and use a very cohesive color palette. So by that I mean don't use any more than 3 to 4 brand colors max on one design. When you are choosing livestock photography, your own photography, background images, things like that, make sure that you stay consistent in terms of style that you're going to go for. One of the fun things that I really like, I have kind of a quirky personality. I really like the platform. There's a couple different platforms, but one of them that I like for stock images is Pexels Gratisography. I'll show you that one here. This one is kind of one of my favorites because it's got unusual type-esque feel for the designs. They're very poppy, they're very out there, right?
Yeah.
And so that would be more fun for me and maybe for your brand with the fun colors to be able to use things that are bright and like out there like that because it kind of makes it stand out. Just make sure that you have an area that's going to be very specific to help you with those kind of things so that you can focus on, oh, okay, I'm just going to grab this one and use it very quickly. I like to always tell people, have your keywords on a list, have your images on a list, and then just go to town creating it.
That's fair.
Any questions about those things right now?
Not as of yet. So
Okay.
far, so good.
Perfect. Awesome. Okay. So I created a couple templates for you. Some of the templates that I created, I wanted to focus on the alignment of the headings, using a couple different fonts, and then repeating the colors with contrast between them. So I will show you. This is one of them that I created right now. So this is going off of your quick start guide.
Yeah.
And so on here, what is the first thing that you notice when you look at this design?
Well, the first thing that popped out was assistant to me.
Perfect. And so we focus on the big fonts and the call out colors with the keywords. Now, if you wanted, you could even take virtual and put it down here, where then I would just copy this, maybe make this a little bit smaller, put it down to the center again, making sure everything's kind of aligned with how we want it. But then I could just copy this and then say virtual. And now what stands out to you?
Virtual assistant.
And this is still the same font as this. It's just bold. So I could bold it and you can see it's still the same font. So we still only have 2 different fonts on here, but we're using different colors. The how-to is very helpful to someone who's like, oh, maybe this is interesting because it's going to actually tell me step by step, right?
Right.
That would be how they're searching. They could be how to scale virtual assistants, how to whatever with virtual assistant. And so that still is going to show up for this design because it's pulled out. Relevancy is a big thing on Pinterest as well. So I did include the image that you have from that landing page
Okay.
because that keeps it more relevant in terms of when they land on your Stan store and being able to sign up for this. You want them to realize that they are on the same page. And so just for everybody looking, this is the Stan store landing page. What if you can take your skills and turn it into a cash machine? When they land on this from that pin, they're automatically going to be like, oh yeah, I'm in the right place. I understand this is where I want to be. And they'll stay there longer rather than bouncing out. Pinterest will also visually search and scan your website.
Okay.
You won't see it, but you do get a relevancy score on Pinterest. And so it is very, very important that you make sure that you are talking the same way, sharing the same things, so that they don't go, well, this doesn't quite make sense, because then you could get deprioritized in the system. Does that help make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. That's fair.
Okay. The other thing is a lot of people tend to look at pages like this. I love this page. I love the stars. My branding actually uses Rockstar as a brand.
There you go.
When we look at pin designs, though, do not overly heavily design the pin. So notice how when we're looking at this pin design, there's no like stars or things like that around there, because I really want it to focus on the value, what they're going to get. I'm saying that it's the quick start, right? I'm pulling on that emotional, like, oh my gosh, I could do this quick. It's giving me the how-tos, and I want to be a virtual assistant. Or we just focus on those. So let's work backwards a little bit from here, because when I'm on your landing page, it does not say how to become a virtual assistant. That is start your business fast. So I want to show you how to figure out to create different titles. So when we are in here, the thing that got me was ebook, quick start guide. And then what if you could take your skills and turn it into a cash machine? Now, I knew that you were for virtual assistants because that's your website and I had seen the things. One of the things that I would say is when I went in here, I went to search what is the top 10 pins that pull up for how to become a virtual assistant. And so this is something I trademarked called pin hacking. I want when you are looking for creating your pins, I want you to pin hack. I want you to look and see what pulls up. What do these pins look like? Right? And so tell me one of them that stands out to you.
The one that stands out to me the most is the teal one on the far left.
Yep, this first one. Why does that stand out to you the most?
I don't know, probably because it's like bold. It has that cartoony, almost like hand-drawn effect, which is different than anything that anybody else is having at the moment.
Absolutely. So right there, you just decided, maybe subconsciously without realizing, that you want those hand-drawn things on your pins because that stood out to you. And you are attracting people like you that drew you that way, right? And so you want to focus on things that are going to stand out. Do pin hacking, we're focusing on the keywords, we're focusing on what draws your attention, we're focusing on the readability, and then let's fill the gaps, right? So one of the things in terms of filling the gaps, I could probably say for you, I love these call to action, like little things here, right? For me, filling the gap in this one with absolutely no experience is a little too tight in terms of this pin design. So when we look at yours over here, we could have put something like without any previous experience. So then all we have to do is bring this over here. And then if we really wanted to, we could change this a little bit so it's not all caps. We could put it a little bit like this. Maybe we even do like this background here and pull it in like this so that it's leading into that. And then again, position just backwards so that it goes behind everything. Right? And so then maybe I want this to go like this and make it bold or something like that. Right? But then do you see how that kind of now aligns it, but you just filled, quote unquote, filled the gap from this one to yours. If you like those handwritten things, right? You can add those elements in. You could say coffee mug. And then you have like there's a coffee mug, right? Like that one's probably a little bold to be doing. But also remember, I really love how this is like not overdone.
Simplistic.
Yep. And very simple. And so when you get too much on a design, right, and you add things in there, then it might start to take away from, like, even just putting this little mug on there. I feel like even that just starts to take away from what you had up here, right? Because then your eye is drawn to this coffee mug instead. So that's one of the big things with pin hacking. One of the other things that I really like to do with pin hacking that will help you with your designs is you want to also make sure that you are using the keywords that Pinterest understands. So a user would type in how to become a virtual assistant and look at all of these can be all different titles. This is one of the things called ABC search. You can also go in here and you get more information when you look at a pin in incognito mode. And so I always right click and look at this in incognito mode. And you can start to see how Pinterest classifies this. So become a virtual assistant is one of the big keywords. Virtual assistant business is another keyword. Virtual assistant training, right? And that the training one might actually be very good for you with your low ticket stuff.
Yeah.
You're not saying free download, you're not saying anything like that. Virtual assistant business and jobs online still too. Virtual assistant jobs. All of those could be very, very helpful in terms of creating that next pin to fill the gap of what you see on here for how to be a virtual assistant. So how is that sitting so far?
Keywords, they actually search your design as well as like your description and put it all in like title, description, all that kind of stuff. But like the keywords in your design also matter, correct?
Yes. Yep. So even if we took this one pin down here, it says explore now. It used to be visual search. It still does the same thing, but when you click on it, it will actually visually search the entire pin. You can choose specific parts. So you can see how it would look with just this graphic, if it would still pull up the right things for you. The nice thing though is Pinterest will visually search your entire pin automatically for you. And that's how they know how to show your stuff to more. So when you're looking at something, if what pulls up in visual search is what you want to be found for, then you know you're doing something right.
Okay.
And same thing when you click on here, they will show you more here. They'll show you more ideas. Everything that Pinterest is showing you should be hyper relevant to what you want to rank for. If it's not, then you go back to looking at your design to see, okay, what should I change? What should I alter?
Fair.
Any
Okay.
questions?
No, not at the moment.
Okay. Perfect. All right, let's look at your second design that I created here. So this is the next one. Very, very similar. Again, I use the same call to action ebook, but it's a different type of person, right? And so if you didn't want to have free, you could even take that off, but you could say like how to attract dream clients as a virtual assistant and then lead to one of your trainings or your downloads or anything like that, right? And again, it can be something as simple as these fonts. I am bringing in the script font for you. How to attract. We can't have two in there twice. But I am bringing in that like scripty font. You could get closer to yours, but one thing to know is that it's a lot smaller. Virtual assistant is not necessarily what I am trying to rank for. Attract dream clients is what I'm trying to rank for because that's a whole nother side of Pinterest, right? And so maybe it could be attract dream clients and they are a virtual assistant, but they don't know how. And so you could rank it in a whole nother other way, but then the person that sees your pin is going to self-select them because you have in this smaller text virtual assistant. So for the keywords, you can be a little more broad to be in a different area, but you also want to focus on making sure that you have that self-selection for them on the pin design itself.
Okay, that makes sense.
And then also make sure that you're keeping all your text aligned. Again, that is a very big thing. You want a lot of contrast to make important words pop. We call that color SEO. So there are certain types of colors that you can look up that help you rank for certain type of keywords, because if you look when you do a search, even if we're looking at this, it's a lot of neutrals and a lot of light blues and pastels. That might not be your brand, but maybe you use a pastel like client magnet here and everything else is more neutral. So instead of maybe the bright yellow, right? You keep the bright yellow maybe, and maybe you do a pastel blue instead. Close to a pastel, but just different ways to look at how it can be done in that regard.
Makes sense. Do you find that having like your URL or information on the pin is necessary, or is that something that you skip?
Great question. So it used to be necessary. I actually no longer suggest it just because of the fact that Pinterest users, like we talked about, are not brand specific. And so focusing on having your branding on there is okay in terms of if you want to make sure it stays as your intellectual property. However, I have noticed the less I put on there for my branding in terms of the logo or the URL, the
Yeah.
more engagement that I'm getting with it. It's almost like when we go back to the original days of just putting up the pictures and the images or the text-based images, I mean, you got a lot of traction from that. And I'm going to say the reason most of us started putting our logos and things like that on there is because of stolen pins. Stolen pins is still out there, but it's not as heavily a nuisance as it used to be. More of like the spammy type AI bots, and Pinterest has definitely, like, now with all the technology, been able to crack down on that a lot. So we tested for my clients going back without the URLs or heavy branding or anything like that, and we are seeing a significant increase of it doing better without that.
Interesting.
Yeah. As everything on Pinterest, definitely test for your own brand and your own niche. I prefer to keep mine off now. In the past 2 years, I think it's been.
Interesting. So not actual pin related, but in the past, I've been told to have like a Pinterest board that was purely for like my brand specific stuff. So it sends everything to my, whatever URL in my sphere. And then having that board towards the front. So if somebody did land on my profile, let's say, that they could go there and see, I guess, like a gist of what I do, where free things are, whatever. Is that still a key practice to implement? Is that something that we should skip? Like, how does that work?
Yeah, really good question. So I actually would suggest skipping it for now. We do see some people that have had them and they still work well for them. My thought process behind that and strategy behind that is it still works well for them because they've had it so long. They've had
Mm,
engagement, they've had the click-throughs. So naturally, that's going to be a good board for them. If you are revamping or restarting or just starting brand new, I definitely suggest focusing more on the keyword focused boards so that when you save a pin that talks about virtual assistant's guides, it needs to directly reflect a virtual assistant on it, because your first pin should always be saved to the most relevant board first. Put that on your brand board, there's going to be a disconnect in that relevancy.
makes sense. Okay. And as far as actual boards, like, still best practice to hide or archive boards that are not relevant to your brand if this is like your branding Pinterest?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you like to have your own personal boards on there, or maybe there's just outdated branded boards on there that your business doesn't do anymore, definitely just archive them. If it's something you want to still pin to, like I have sewing boards and crafting boards and things like that, I just secret those so they don't affect my account, but I can still access them and save to them. But yeah, I would make sure to do a cleanup and focus very heavily on what's going to be relevant in search for you right now.
Got it. Okay. I guess one last question for you then is around cleanup, because since I haven't touched it in 7 years,
Yeah.
I have some stuff that's like older and could probably either be updated or refreshed or archived altogether. Do you recommend going in and like revamping everything? Do you recommend like archiving them? Do I leave them because they have been there for so long? They've been there for 7+ years.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, looking at your account too, I definitely would say revamp it in the most loving way possible. We actually do a revamp at least once a year for most of our clients, if not a little bit more. We'll go in and do an optimization and audit to make sure that they have something that's done for them. When we do a optimization cleanup for them, the first thing we look at will be the boards to make sure that they're still going to be relevant. So, like some of these group boards, we'll look at the analytics. If they're serving you, then by all means stay in them. 9 times out of 10, most group boards are kind of gone right now. You do have like Instagram tips, social media tips, online business. Like some of these are great. Like online business, I definitely would look at if it's doing well, keeping it. Social media manager marketing, I would see if that's still a keyword that's ranking well. I would focus on that. Virtual assistant, I'm sure, is great. In terms of social media, you're probably going to have Mom Hewer. In terms of Pinterest, you're probably not going to. So just things like that. Again, making sure that you're keeping up to date with the profile here. Also, board covers I know are aesthetically pleasing. That's definitely something up to you if you want them or not. If you do them, one of the things I would say is make sure that it is clickable somewhere. So I don't know if I would be able to find it. It's probably a bunch.
6 to 7 years old. It's probably way back there.
So if you do have something like that, then yeah, definitely make sure that that image itself clicks through so that it goes to somewhere meaningful. Because if you just have it there to have it there, there's really no like strategy behind that or purpose behind that. And you want to make sure that everything that you are putting on the platform has that intention and that purpose. The other thing that I will say too is if you're looking at cleaning up anything, when we do our optimization and cleanup, we will archive boards or secret boards, but I definitely will not go and delete any pins or edit any pins. My suggestion to people is don't waste your time on that. Go and look, and if those pins did well back then and it's something you still offer and still want to talk about, then create a new design, link to it with a fresh perspective of what's actually going to rank.
Okay, and that makes sense. Like, I don't think there's anything else that I was debating on, because I'm like, I know that's a great way to get traffic. It's a good way to like convert into sales. I guess the only other thing would be, is there any tips or tricks when I create the pin design itself to increase the chances of it being clickable or clicking through or having people actually like make it all the way to my site to get whatever thing I'm talking about, flip it more than others?
Yeah, I mean, definitely making sure that you have the fun call to actions. Don't just say like download here, click to read more, like make it catchy. I kind of try to tell people like without being clickbaity, be like BuzzFeed, right? And so if you're saying like these are your top 3 tips, then in the little button call to action, I might say, bet you didn't know number 2, or number 3 is my favorite and I use it almost every day, because then that kind of plays on, ooh, what does that mean? Like the FOMO of, oh, but maybe I don't know it, right? And so it's not necessarily being clickbaity, but it's getting them to think like, okay, maybe I don't know what number 3 is or number 2 is.
Like curious enough to like click through and actually see.
Yeah. Yeah. Getting them to feel that, right? Keeping in mind the big blocky headlines, they're going to scream authority. So if that's something that you're very much so like, this needs to be very out there, then use the big blocky headlines. You can do like collage style or listicle type pins if you want to try to have more saves, because the more saves you get and the more pin clicks where they pull it up closer, the more click throughs and outbound traffic you're going to get, because Pinterest is going to constantly be showing your stuff in the feed. So those are things to keep in mind when you're doing things that way too, is like save this for later, or have different things that are like the listicle pins where they'd want to come back and think about it later or revisit it later. Those kind of things will also help.
So the metrics to look for then when you're looking on the back end of like a pin and you're like, okay, is this worth archiving or saving? Am I looking at saves and click-throughs? Are those the ones that I should be prioritizing, or is there different metrics that people should be looking at?
Yeah, the first metric I always look at are going to be outbound clicks. If the outbound clicks are there, then great, duplicate it, do more of it. The next thing, definitely look in that incognito view. See how Pinterest is tagging your pins with what keywords. Make sure that they're right. Make sure that they're aligned. Once you have those two things, things will start to fall in place. If you're not yet at there though, and you're like, okay, I'm getting tons of impressions, but they're not actually clicking through, then you're going to want to play that if this then that game and kind of look at like, okay, did I have a strong call to action? Was my title relevant to where it's supposed to be? Is the keyword relevant to what I want to be found for? Things like that. If all of that you're saying yes, 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 then it's more nuanced than just the design. You're probably going to want to look at where you saved it to on the board. Was that relevant? Is that board helping serve you, right? So I do start with impressions when I'm back working it that way. The reason I look at saves and maybe pin clicks, very seldomly pin clicks, but saves, is because I want to keep the engagement rate up. If we're having high impressions and high engagement, more than likely 9 times out of 10, you're going to have high outbound clicks. If those things are not aligning, that's when we start to work backwards. Look at the design, look at the board, see where there might be a gap that we need to try to fill.
Okay, that makes sense.
Awesome. Okay, so remember for me, the lifespan of a pin is going to be longer than any platform out there. So this means that if you invest in a few extra minutes to get the design right in the beginning, create some templates, buy templates from fun people, it can pay off for months and even years. I have a pin that I put up years ago. I actually had to recreate it and lead to the right link now because I no longer offer that masterclass, but I did it like 6 years ago. It still brings in leads. So definitely keep that in mind as long as you're focused on, streamlining that process, that visual interest, and then that clear call to action. That's really going to be the formula to help you get those low ticket sales and those email leads.
Okay.
Awesome. Anybody listening, if you want help applying to this to your own account, definitely go ahead and you could submit for a free audit. The link will be in the show notes. And I might even ask you to be on a future episode with me. And if this was helpful, share it with a biz bestie who's still out there pinning in chaos, not seeing the results they need, or maybe like my wonderful Teagan here, just left it on the shelf for 7 years and they know that it's something that could help them. Just send them my way, have them listen to this episode. Thank you so much, Teagan, for hanging out with me and everybody else for tuning in to the Pintastic podcast. The last thing that I just want to make sure that I say is honestly, Pinterest rewards action. So go out there and just do some designs, even if you don't feel like it's perfect or beautiful. Go ahead, try it, make Pinterest work for you by just putting in the action because it can be your most powerful platform yet, as long as you do the work.
Got it.
Thank you for hanging out with me.
Well, thank you for having me. I had a good time.
Yeah, awesome.
Thanks so much for listening to the Pintastic podcast. If you're enjoying the show, please feel free to rate, subscribe, and review on wherever you listen to your podcasts. We really appreciate that effort. Until next time.